So eventually what happens is that the government is the most successful group of gangsters.
Hey.
Good evening.
How are we doing?
Great. How are you doing, sir?
Cannot complain. It's been going smooth. I've had like 50 interviews not interviews, but like conversations with different people this week. It's been hectic, but I'm loving it, you know?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Conversations about liberty?
Yeah. I had Jewish Voice for Peace. That guy. I had an immigration lawyer, a few people within the Black community and things like that. And it's just, I don't know, it's been all over. It's so many interesting conversations, but
That's awesome.
yeah, it's awesome. We're getting places, and it's like having like those small sectors of support, and hopefully it can grow into something larger for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I find too, personally, that the individual conversations with all the diverse people you come across is what actually gives me the most hope.
Right.
You know, it's what fills me with the most hope that we're not alone out here in this big old world, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of everyday people that feel the same way we do, you know?
Right, exactly.
So that's always reassuring. But thank you so much for agreeing to come on to our podcast then, since you've been busy. I know you just recently also had a brand new baby girl as well. Congratulations.
Month-old, she's adorable.
Yeah, she is. I can attest to that. I've seen pictures. So congratulations on that. I know you already had a daughter, so it's not new dad life, but extra dad life, right?
Exactly.
And what do you do, in your everyday life?
So I work at Quick Trip. I'm a material loader. So essentially, if there's any product that you've handled at Quick Trip before, I've probably loaded it onto a truck. I'm normal, average, everyday, like middle class guy.
Yeah.
My old lady's a stay-at-home wife, got 2 kids. It's normal, average, everyday stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. We actually, I'm the stay-at-home parent in our relationship.
Nice.
She's the breadwinner. So actually, it's nice having a parent at home and being able to be, directly interactive with the kids and the upbringing.
Right.
It's something I feel like in our American culture that used to be very common, and now it's more rare.
It's almost frowned upon now. It's
it
weird.
is. It literally is almost frowned. It's like, well, what are you doing with yourself? Well, a lot of things actually.
Exactly.
But yeah, so if you wouldn't mind, would you mind giving us a little bit of a background? I know we haven't really met much, and I know that you're running for Congress, and I know that you've been in the armed forces and things like that, but I don't know your backstory, and I think a lot of people that might be voting for you would also like to hear, where did Brett Knudson come from?
Right. I mean, so originally I was born in Arkansas. I moved up to Rhinelander, Wisconsin about when I was 8. And I just came from a very conservative family, and they also kind of came along with me on this journey of liberty. It's kind of weird, but like I joined the Navy, and like you see all this endless military spending. You meet all these great people from all these diverse backgrounds, and like it's just like I was so sheltered, and every step that I could, like I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn more about like the Muslim culture, and like I wanted to learn more about like all these these views in my head that just they were substandard to like being inclusive, and like I wanted to challenge myself more and more every day. And it got to the point where it's like this libertarian thing, it cracked out to be who I wanted to be, like this everlasting force of just like peaceful unity. And I don't see that anywhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely can relate there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. So then basically, you kind of came, I think a lot of people at least started on one side or the other, a lot more, I think, on the right, but a lot of people started on one side or the other. And then they we, especially in our generations, are a lot more open-minded and free thinking, I think, than previous generations, only because we've had the internet that's allowed us to see the perspectives of so many different people across the world.
Right.
And, when you get that perspective, it's really hard to be a bigot. It's really hard to be narrow-minded. It's really hard to even be somebody who believes in like standardization. How do you believe in standardization when you see there's 8 billion people and every one of them's different?
Exactly.
So like it's cool. You kind of came along that same journey. I think a lot of people are in this day and age, which is just really coming down to the individual is the most important. And, you know, how can we help other people, you know, become aware to that? And how can we ourselves light torches for other people to see in that way? But so that's really cool, you know. And so when did you decide to join the armed forces, I guess, first of all?
It was like straight out of high school. I had two brothers prior to me that joined the Navy as well. So I was like, Navy sounds good to me. I wanted to be in the special forces, try and be like an air rescue swimmer and all this different stuff. That didn't work out. I wound up just kind of distancing myself from the Navy and like not feeling like a sense of purpose or draw to like what we were even doing as a whole within the armed forces. I saw like so much waste, so many people being used up just because the politicians wanted them to go to a certain place. And it's just, there's so much angst within everyone in the armed forces. Like everyone on my ship, they just did not want to be there. They were forced to be there. They're here so they could get the college benefits and like whatever healthcare, like just get out of whatever situation that the government helped put them in the first place. And it's
what the recruiter promised them, right? Just all these flashy things.
Exactly. And I mean, it just got to the point where it all became a joke all in and of itself. So it's got me to where I am now.
Is that kind of what the catalyst was, I guess, for you to actually step up and do something as far as like running for office? Was your experience in the armed forces directly? Is that kind of what, or was it something else?
I would say so, because I mean, like when you first join like the service, like there's always this call to like serve and be better and like help other people around the world and end terrorism, whatever the calling may be. But it was just when I was in the service, of course, I didn't feel that call of destiny and like being able to help and being of service. And when I got out, it's just like, well, what am I supposed to do at this point? And it got to the point where it's like, okay, I need to get involved with politics. I want to be able to change something. I want to end these wars. And I wanted to start off at the state level. And so I could start somewhere, gain foothold. But then when I look at these congressional leaders that we have in our district right now, there's a guy who's voted for almost every single war along the way. He's voted to arm terrorists. It's like he's in charge of Social Security and Medicare and all that different stuff, could easily put in provisions to make healthcare affordable, but he's also bought out by all these different pharmaceutical companies. Like you can see all the donations. It's insane how much corruption is on the Democratic side, the current incumbent leader. And then when we have Derek
Kind, right?
Right, Ron Kind. And then we have Derek Van Orden, and he's ran for the Republican side last election. He's already pushing, like they got his name across the 3rd district Republican Party page. Like he's gonna run again. He's making it very known. And the guy's putting out literal propaganda saying that Ron Kind's sending all these rapists and murderers over from Mexico. And it's like, that's not even like, that's not part of the bill at all.
It's not
like,
realistic.
And it's just like, he draws this hate out of people, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, I kind of did a bit of research just before the podcast on both of them. He seems like he's kind of in that Trumpist cult almost, you know, like
full
on
cult.
I shouldn't say almost is.
Yeah. I mean, and like when you have people like him where like they want to talk about like the peace deal that Trump signed, and it's like that peace deal is essentially an arms deal to Saudi Arabia, so they could bomb the crap out of Yemen and further the genocide that they put into place. It's disgusting to look at what they've done, and they draw this as some sort of peace conclusion when those people weren't even in war in the first place. It's saddening for sure. It
is. And when there's actual other wars and other genocides and other turmoils that are taking place, that honestly, like, you know, a lot of people say, well, America shouldn't play the world's policeman. And I definitely agree. What we could do in those situations, though, is play some form of like moderator, mediator. We are a much bigger, you know, enterprise as a whole. We could step in and say, okay, hold on a second. You don't need to kill each other. Let's broker a deal. Let's negotiate. You know, we can play that role instead of stepping in and picking favorites and bombing the other side. You know,
I mean, and that's what the position of presidency is even supposed to be. It's supposed to be put in place for diplomatic reasoning, not to bomb the crap out of these other countries. And it's like, and that's the purpose for Congress, to establish war and all this different kind of stuff. And it's like, they haven't done that since World War II. And it's insanity to just keep on letting the same thing happen over and over and over again. And both of the parties are doing the same thing. Like, it's not like it's one versus the other. It's both of them. There's
and I think a lot of people too don't realize too that a lot of this is happening. A lot of the reason why it's even able to take place is because of people like Ron Kind and Van Orden in the Congress at the state level, because they are the ones that are passing through this unilateral action in military without full congressional approval. You were saying, Van Orden was like, on this Trump cult. We actually have in the district we're in, District 8 here, we actually have a congressman, Mike Gallagher, who is 100% voted Trump, like, along the way. He's like 91% party lines. He voted for the Yemeni genocide. He voted against bringing troops home in Syria. Like, all the things you're listing, he's exactly the same. And, like, that's just an example of where, like, we're on opposite sides of the state of Wisconsin. You're on the western side and we're on the eastern side. And yet nothing is different in the politics. Right. It's exactly the same. And it's this level that's fueling that federal level to have that power.
And Mike Gallagher is the perfect example of what is corrupt with the GOP too. Because, like, oh gosh, like, he's elected in office and he's still spewing all this crap about, like, the immigration crisis or whatever that's happening right now. Even though it could easily be avoided if we just expedited the immigration process in the first place. And it's like, he's talking about how this was like, amnesty has never worked in the past, and 1986 was a complete disaster. And it's like, our economy boomed after the amnesty. Like, all these people were working with jobs, like, boosting the economy. And, like, then came the 99 internet boom. And, like, those immigrants helped establish this. And, like, yes, there's more immigrants that came because of amnesty. And it was a very short period of that. And immigrants are a good thing. Like, they are, absolutely. They're more peaceful than our home native population. Like, it's good for the economy. The only side that anyone could ever bring up, and it's not a downside, like, this is just pure, like, Nazi propaganda stuff, like, is like changing of culture, whatever it may be. Like, it's disgusting to even try and make that argument. And it's just,
it is. Because, somebody in rural Appalachia is not about to change their culture because some Hispanic people have moved in down the street. That's not going to happen.
And meanwhile, we got people out in Israel right now, literally tearing down homes and occupying land of Palestinians, and we're giving them $4 billion every year.
I know, it's sickening.
I can't even, like, and, like, people like Ron Kind, Van Orden, they'll call themselves, like, pro-Israel, or, like, oh, maybe we'll, like, Ron Kind, he has talked in the past about, well, we'll put pressure on Israel to stop these actions. And it's, you haven't done anything. Like, you're giving them $4 billion every year in military aid, just strictly military aid. No,
like I said, that's just what we know of, really, too. I mean, there's a lot more that goes on, I'm sure, behind the scenes, backdoor deals.
Exactly.
To boost up their elite. And every single one of them. I mean, honestly, it's very difficult to actually find any of these representatives at the state and federal level that don't support this stuff.
Right.
It's
Right. You're spot on. I mean, it's just like, and what are we supposed to do about changing that? When we always say, like, well, just the lesser evil. And it's, where has that gotten us?
Yeah, there is no lesser evil.
We are the leading country in imperialist genocide. Like, that's just a flat out fact. And it's, we can talk about how cruel China is or how bad Russia is, but, like,
nothing called out.
Putin called out Biden the other day for being, like, how am I a killer? Like, look at your own country. Like, it reminds me of that verse in, like, the Bible where it talks about, like, why would you talk about the stick in my eye when there's a log in your own? Like,
right, exactly.
Oh god, and it's just, it's insane. I can't.
It's doublespeak. It's 1984 realized is really what it is.
Right.
I was actually doing a little bit of research because I put together a post today, kind of calling out Mike Gallagher on a few things. And I actually was sickened by some of the data I came across. Like, I've known some of the data, and I knew that the wars have been very bad in the Middle East, obviously.
Right.
To see some of it quantified, like Trump, for instance, a lot of people will sit and bemoan Obama all day long, as they should, as being one of the most drone strikingest presidents of all time. Yet, in Trump's first year alone, he increased civilian deaths by drone strike 330%.
Right.
Yeah, he was championed by his base as being peace and love, and he's ending wars, and like
that's what I don't understand either. Is like when you talk about, well, he didn't start another war, and it's
that's the benchmark. But he got to increase the other ones.
Literally
and,
killed more people.
Kill more people. Kill more innocent people at that.
Right. And it's just, I mean, and also when we look at these situations too, because we can look back at Syria too, where we're literally arming the people that killed us. Like these are little terrorists, like the Al-Nusra. They're branched out from Al-Qaeda. Like this guy is a sworn allegiance to, gosh, I'm going blank on the guy's name from Al-Qaeda. But either way, this guy that took over Al-Qaeda after Osama. And it's like he has a sworn allegiance to him.
Yeah.
And,
and we're
just like
and funding him again.
Just here's some more guns, I guess.
Yeah.
Like
here's some missiles.
As long
I
as
don't really
it
know
takes
what
down
to do with you.
Right. And we call these people moderate rebels, when in all actuality, like these people are grown terrorists. Like these people aren't like the doctors or pharmacists that we're supporting out in the Middle East. No, these people are the worst of the worst. And we're supporting it just to have some sort of regime change. And when that regime change happens, it's going to be someone that's worse or just as bad. Like that's what happens every time.
Always happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's really order out of chaos. They know that if they just keep the Middle East in this constant state of chaos, they control it all.
Well, just like they do the United States.
It's true. And they've done in different little pockets. They've done it in like Africa. They did it in Ukraine just a few years ago. I mean, that entire turmoil, the culture revolution that happened in Ukraine was totally funded by George Soros. And nobody, everybody just glosses over that.
I mean, was it 2014 when they just said like straight up F the EU? Like, we don't care what the EU thinks. We're gonna just like overthrow the government in the Ukraine, like call it good, and
like whatever. There's even like whole areas of Ukraine that was like, no, please don't. And Russia, they are begging Russia to annex them so that we don't want these crazy people ruling our lives.
Oh gosh, and it's one big government mess, and like we can look at since the beginning, it's just any tragedy that's happening, you can almost point it directly back to the government. Any type of immigration laws that we see in place, it's because of a racist government. We can see slavery, it started with the government. When we look at why there's so little diversity in certain cities of populations mixing, it's because of the government, redlining and all this different stuff. And it's we're trying to say that the government needs to take all these initiatives and things like that to fix everything somehow, when they messed it up every time. It's
and the more we keep giving them, the more they just fumble it constantly.
So the only way they can fix it is by keeping your hands off of it.
Right. Just drop it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that's because what a lot of people the people that I talk to that aren't awake to the state, as I would say,
right,
they don't understand that these people are just other humans.
Yeah.
Right.
They're people like you and me. Nothing really sets them apart.
Are you
at
kidding
all.
me? They are gods.
Oh yeah, they're elites.
They're all knowing.
They've been tagged as these elites, but they're just humans.
They're
and
unstoppable.
Many of them have, ulterior motives because they are just humans. They have things that they desire and things. Everybody has a price tag, as they say. So if, absolute power corrupts absolutely, then we can't have absolute power.
Right.
Because even the greatest people, it will corrupt eventually in some way, shape, or form. And even if it doesn't, those people can't stay in power forever.
Exactly.
You can have the greatest person on earth and put him as king of the earth. And even if they never went corrupt, they can't stay king for eternity, And then that power goes on to somebody else. Yeah, and who's to say they're going to be just as good? So that's where it comes down to, again, just fucking individuality.
I mean, and when we look at it too, you can see just how these people propagate hate, because we feed off of it. We just live and feed and angst. Everything we do is built off of hate within this country right now, because that's what fuels politics, I should say. And it's when I talk to people about immigration, they think that it's if an immigrant comes and takes a job, that they're taking it from a job that another person in America would have had. And that's not how it works. Like,
No.
this is like almost basic economics, where if another person comes into our country, that's a person that wants to be fed, another person that wants to buy goods, like it increases our economy, builds more jobs, and that they fail to recognize that. And it's like, I was talking to an immigration lawyer yesterday, and he was telling me the story about like how a woman marched all the way from like the bottom of Mexico. He was like, well, how long did it take you? And she was, it took 6 months. And he's like, 6 months to get from Mexico to Wisconsin. And like, why even come to Wisconsin of all places? And she's like, well, my uncle called me one day and was like, I have a job. If you want to come up here, it's available to you. And she marched along. She hired a cartel, paid them money to get her across the border. And it's like, she gave up everything, her family, her siblings, her parents, everything, like left them all behind so she could try and have some sort of better life here. And it's like, we look at that and like, it's like, I'd hire that person in a heartbeat. Like, this is a person that just wanted to give up everything for a better life. And who am I to tell you that you can't do that?
Absolutely.
And she legitimately just crossed 6 months across the country to come get that job.
Halfway across the world.
And it's just like a literal farming, like bottom of the barrel, like
hard
wages
labor
job.
too.
Like, right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that's just what they want. They want some sort of prosperity. Like, these people want change. And sometimes like, it's not even like all on their own accord. Like, sometimes like these countries are ravished by war, drug cartels, or whatever the case may be, and like they just want to escape.
Mexico,
they want
for
something
instance.
new.
Mexico is ravished by the cartels. The cartels are completely decimating that nation and turning it into their own little, play haven of they get to pick and choose who wins and loses and dies and lives. And we are partially, I shouldn't say we as in like you and I and everybody, our government is partially at fault for that because of Obama's Fast and Furious program, shipping in guns to the cartels specifically.
Exactly. Like,
and that's another thing too. If we would stop destabilizing these regions, if we would stop bombing and destroying their cultural centers, ravishing their economies, completely flipping their governmental systems, if we would stop doing these things to a lot of these countries, they wouldn't have to immigrate here.
Right.
They could stay in their countries.
Right. And like, because these aren't like moving to a whole new country, walking 600 miles isn't their first go-to option when it comes to
But all the time, honestly, like people from Costa Rica, for instance, why the hell would you ever move from Costa Rica to America? Costa Rica is beautiful.
Right.
It's a gorgeous country. People from America vacation there. For Christ's sake, pay top dollar to vacation there, Right. Exactly. I think honestly, if they just had prosperity and they had the opportunities that they hear about in America, if they had that kind of freedom where they live, they would never want to leave those places. Why would you?
Right. It's just, and there's other motivations too. Like, there's the whole like weather and like going through like that kind of stuff.
There are some people that would still, absolutely. I'm not generalizing entirely, but
right. No, you're right.
Vast majority, moves because of the economic, possibilities here.
Right, and the weather in itself is like what causes that. You're right. We fuel this war on drugs as well, where it's like we create like a black hole to just suck up every economic opportunity for the black market to fall in and of itself. And it's like, if we're going to give criminals jobs, criminals are going to be doing like all this activity. Like that's how it works. Like
exactly. You want to make criminals unemployed, get rid of the black market.
Right.
Bring it into the free market.
Exactly. And like, rather than trying to condemn these people or have their drugs stepped on and all this different stuff, like I imagine like, just like any type of person that I love, like if they're in some sort of situation where they're using hard drugs or something like that, like, and they want to get out of that, I don't want them to like possibly overdose on fentanyl because they thought they were getting heroin or something like that. Like I want them to be able to recover, do what they want to do to try and come out of this situation before it gets too bad and before that final straw is broken. Like it's just, and we put all of this in place, all these hardships on families because of ourselves. Like this is what we do. And it's just, and it breaks people's hearts and causes more pain within families and tearing them apart because of what the government, what elite people decide is best for your family.
Absolutely.
And it's just
Right. And if we move towards decriminalizing all drugs, then you would have more stations where people can get their heroin, figure out it's not really for me at low dosage, monitored, clean, everything.
Right.
Yep, sterile needles.
Right.
Yep.
And then if you need help, it's there because the market was open and it created it for it.
Well, yeah.
And you would get proper help, and you wouldn't have the weight on all of your families where now your auntie's got to quit her job and take care of you and monitor you while everybody's trying to strive to pay the bills and support habits. And
exactly.
I mean, how many people are dying in back alleyways with a needle in their arm that could be in a clean clinic being monitored by a health professional instead? Right. You know, and it sounds foreign to so many people in our country to think about somebody going into a health clinic to get heroin. Right. But at the same time, isn't it worse to think about people dying in an alleyway?
Exactly.
You know, like I think it's more foreign to think about these human beings slumped over dead, nobody in the world there for them. That's more foreign to me to think about than somebody going into a hospital saying, you know, I'm in a position, I need this, please give it to me in the safest way possible. And then maybe you can also give me some information on how to get off of it.
Right.
You know.
Right. I mean, and that's another thing about like rehab and things like that. Like you're forcing people to go cold turkey, like straight up just forcing them and expecting it to turn out for the best type of situation.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
Because not one size fits all.
No.
Exactly.
Never.
I mean, there needs to be other opportunities.
But not everybody can.
Exactly. I mean, and you're just creating that opportunity where it's like, well, now I just miss it. Like it's something that like I know what it is. It's hit me all at once. If I just do it once, it'll be a huge rush, all this different type of stuff. And it's just like if there's just that opportunity where it's like, okay, I can wean off of it. I realize that this is just something that I do to make me feel good, whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
but it's just
no,
and it's just it's so insane. Like people don't even try to look at that other side. They just want to say, well, I've seen heroin destroy families. Yeah. So that means I don't want it on the streets at all.
You saw the black market of heroin destroy families. You never saw the medical market of heroin destroy a family because you've never seen the medical market of heroin. You know? I can even tell you from our experience with cannabis, you know, before we are medical cannabis patients. And before we were medical cannabis patients, I would say I abused it more. You know, I used it to get high. I smoked it. There were all these things. And then after I became a medical patient, I gained information and resources. I gained clean, product. I gained a doctor. I gained all these things. And then I started using it appropriately. Our usage cut like in half or more. I stopped smoking it entirely, because I had so many more products and so many more things available to me that actually helped me medically. Where then I was realizing like, oh, wow, I was abusing this product before. And that's exactly what you're explaining. But in like heroin, it'd be like the same thing.
Exactly.
Somebody who's junking up every single day, multiple times a day. And now you go to a doctor's clinic where you get pure, refined, good quality heroin.
Heroin brownies.
And you realize like, oh, wait, maybe I don't need it every single day, all day long. Maybe I only need it once a day.
Well, not only
and
that,
then,
your doctor would more or less be sitting there and be like, all right, Peter, are you sure? Are you sure this is the road you want to go
And
down?
honestly, if cannabis was more flushed out and legalized at this point, I think the doctors could use that as like have you tried cannabis to give you the edge? Have you tried this? Because there are very strong cannabis products, I think, especially in the current medical field, that can top almost the hardest of drugs if applied the right way. And for people that really need that cognitive just detachment from reality, you can still get that in a much safer way through cannabis than any other hard drug.
Exactly. I mean, and like that's why there's like the 1994 study showing like states that legalize cannabis, like they have lower overdose deaths. Yeah. And there's like a 2014 study that showed the opposite of this, but what they don't point out is like that was literally the year that fentanyl spiked in these states.
Oh, God.
And so it's like it was a contradictory study, but like if you look at almost every other study, because like I've gone into debates with like Republicans over this like far too often, where it's like like they'll try and be like, what about this study? And I'm like, no, like it's like look at any other study, like it shows that cannabis lowers overdose deaths. Like it's just a flat out fact. And like people need to be aware of that. Like people need to realize like there's other things that you can do to not rely on these heroin things. Like if you come off of like using oxycodone and you're like, man, I just need a fix. And it's there's other things that you can do to get that fix and still be healthy and wean off of that and not become addicted and like self-reliant on this thing. But yeah.
And it's crazy. A lot of the government too is what stands in the way because of all the different regulations. They've favoritized so many different industries and markets at this point. They've gotten their little webs and fingers into everything that it's become almost impossible for any real research and breakthroughs to happen in the cannabis market, even in the legalized states.
Right.
You know, there's still, even in the legal states, there's still so much government restriction and regulation on what they're allowed to do that it still is hampering the process. This could be the cannabis plant itself has been around since the dawn of human history and was used up until literally only a few hundred years ago. So like, you know, when you think about all the disconnection humans now have with each other.
Right. I mean, and that even falls in line with like psilocybin.
Yes.
Like how much it's been used for like spiritual like quests and things like that, where it's like this was something that was used to like almost ingrain yourself within the world or whatever. Like, and it was super spiritual, and it like the fact that it's illegal
is
yes thank you. But and it's just like this thing that's illegal, and it's like it's way less harmful than any other type of drug that like nobody's overdosed on mushrooms. Like it's just it connects you, ingrains you with the world, and makes you think less of yourself and enjoy and prosper with all these other people and just feel love and like connection. And it's just illegal. Like how is this
I know.
And like when you look at all these different
naturally.
studies and proving like it's clinical use against depression, against these people who have like
PTSD
PTSD coming to life in the end of your life and coming to terms with that. Like that's amazing. Like this, like the fear of death in and of itself is one of the greatest fears that humans have. And to like break that down and like make it understandable, that's beautiful. And we're just making this illegal because we can, I guess.
Well, yeah, and I think there was a Bill Hicks quote that I recently shared that really hit it on the head. It was like, you know, he had taken mushrooms once, rolled around in a grass field and laughed for hours and realized that we were all one. And now he understands why it's illegal, you know, because the government doesn't want people that are happy, joyous, and feel connected, you know? Have you, I mean, maybe you don't want to answer this. Have you ever had an experience of the psilocybin variety? Have you
No, I have not.
Okay. We have.
Yeah.
And I like definitely am not shy about talking about it because it was extremely powerful. It is literally what led, at least me personally, I don't want to speak for her, but me personally, to libertarianism. Like I always felt liberty and I always felt, you know, freedom, and I always was very anti-authoritarian, period.
Yeah.
But there was a moment during this experience when we were we lived out in the woods. It was this beautiful moment of just kind of like being one with nature and bumbling around and watching life grow all around us. And then it was kind of coming to this understanding of like, well, what is your role in this universal connection? You know, you're a human being and you're in a society full of other human beings, and you've got these, you know, this character that you are. What's your role? How do you fit into it? You know, and how can you make the greatest impact? And that's kind of like, when you're in that experience, it's very profound to be really understanding this, you know, like you're talking about, you start making these connections and it actually bridges gaps you didn't even know existed in your brain.
Right.
Like,
the studies even show that. The studies show that when you're on psilocybin, that your it creates new pathways between your neurons in your brain. So like if it comes to a disconnect, it will just repathway, which is why it helps with depression and anxiety. Because you almost build a pathway to that message. You know, the message gets through now, instead of like, why do I feel this way? I'm so anxious. And like,
well, I mean, you're able to understand like your consciousness and view it in a different way or a different light.
Yes.
Yeah. It honestly lets you separate yourself from your ego a lot too. You know, like fully understand what is the piece of me that is me, and what's the piece of me that I present, you know, and to the rest of the world. And then it helps you kind of marry the two together. You know,
Yeah.
you start to realize like I can be me in the world.
Right.
I don't need to
I get that a lot with like even mindful meditation.
Sure.
And like just being able to come and center yourself and realize like this is like my open body, and like understanding like all the things that flow through it, and just being one with yourself. And like even though it's like you're almost building up this ego, but it's also like a disconnect, and like understanding your ego in and of itself. It's weird, but
it's
like
such a weird paradox.
right. But it's a beautiful thing to just like understand that this body is like yours, and like that every other person has this feeling, like these emotions, these raw things that go throughout your entire body, and it connects yourself and makes you understand like that people all throughout the world, like if they sit down and just like meditate, they can understand like that we all have these chemicals that fire off in our brain that make us happy, sad, and like these actions that we do to each other make us feel all these different emotions. We can understand that we're not just trying to hate each other. Like we can understand that like we can build up each other, build up like these nations of just like pure like love, of trade, of just like being able to connect something greater than of ourselves. And it's just the government gets in the way of that.
Well, that's and you know, you're explaining is like the true power of human connection, you know, and I think that's one of the we actually talked about this with Adam Kokesh, and I think that was one of the greatest things we kind of came to the realization of. One of the strongest components of the libertarian movement is that I think it's the first real powerful political movement in a long time that's finally bringing people together. Right. You know, and and the coolest thing is that everybody's so different. Right. You know, like from so many different backgrounds, so many different belief systems, so many different everything, like race, creed, color, everything. Doesn't matter. Right. But we all have the common understanding and respect for liberty amongst each other and everybody else. You know, like we all want everybody to live free and prosper. It's this common goal we have. Right. But it's so powerful what's happening right now, especially with libertarianism and the internet, because the meme culture and the explosion behind, you know, like all of the, you know, what we see right now is just it's really cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's awesome to see. And I mean, like just even being in the internet age, like I was able to connect with like so many, like dozens of different groups, and like being able to talk to them and realize like their hardships, what's on their mind. And like, even though we may not agree 100% politically, like what economic or whatever other decisions are about, like what we should do, like building this, that, or the fourth, but we can come to agreement on like one essential thing. And that's just like, we all just want to be free. Like we want to be able to do what we want to do. And we just have to come to terms that like everyone should be able to do that. Like we shouldn't partake in like divesting from someone else's freedom to build up our own. Like we should just have that unison fight for it all.
Well, yeah, and I'd even argue too that if you're taking something away from somebody else to be free, then you yourself are not free.
Right.
You know, because to be free is to be happy as you are and in the pursuit of your own, you know, like fulfillment. And your own fulfillment never requires to take from somebody else.
Right. Well, I mean, and that reminds me of like kind of going back to like the Palestinians and Palestinians being in occupied Israel right now. So it's like you have these people and they're pretty much like confined to their own spaces. You have their homes being torn down. You have them being murdered for peaceful protest. Like they're being ultimately like discriminated against. It's an apartheid. And Israel, like they try and condemn these people for the violence that they might have outbreaks of. And it's like, what do you expect when you radicalize these people? Like these people aren't in power. There's no way to like come against them and fight against them. No, like you're radicalizing these people, breaking their homes, stealing their kids. Like you are your own problem. And like if we just bring it back, try and make these diplomatic moves to bring peace, like it's not going to be a one fix all solution, but it's going to bring power to the people and allow them to fix among themselves. And it's a poor sight to see when like we just keep on aiding that with $4 billion dollars every year. Like it blows my mind how much we give to them.
And then expect them to never want to retaliate on us.
Right.
Yeah, and not even just $4 billion, but you look at the damn military bases and where they're all set up in that area, and we've got a whole like wall of military bases protecting Israel at any given moment too.
Exactly.
So above the whole Middle East is surrounded in military bases for crazy.
Exactly. Like,
it's insane.
Like
a lot of people don't even think about how much money and personnel it takes to keep those military bases running too. It's
absurd. I mean, and $4 billion to Israel is just like a little speck on the plate. Like when we look at the totality, exactly, it's over like it's nearing $1 trillion. Like it's every year. It's absurd.
Crazy.
And we just keep feeding the beast. And I hate the argument where it's like, oh, well, we could take away this money and like put it here. But it's like, imagine even if we did, like it blows my mind.
Wasteful there.
It's just, I mean, it would be wasteful. It would ruin economic opportunities in and of itself. But it's just like, it would still be so much, like I could put it into like a plumbing system and literally just flush it down the toilet, and it would be better than putting it to war. Like
it's such a government.
If you're looking to blow that much money, I mean, let's just throw it in the landfill.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, most libertarians would agree with this, but it just seems like it'd make a hell of a lot more sense to stop taxing us all together.
Exactly.
Letting us keep our money, and then giving us the power to put our money in the local systems that we support. If you're somebody who wants trash collection, pay for trash collection. If you're somebody that wants to pay for the local fire department, pay for the local fire department. That's voluntary, voluntarism in action.
Exactly.
And it really does work, because there's a lot of services that most people have that are voluntarily paid for. A lot of people pay for their electricity voluntarily. If you don't pay for it, it gets shut off, like.
Exactly. I mean, and that kind of like also brings it like to how much we can also bring this back to the local governments, because like the federal government in and of itself is corrupt. Like we all know that. But like even like when we look at the local levels, when we see people that have to pay like $1,000 a month when they're for rent, when they're working minimum wage jobs, and it's like, why can't I just like go and find like a little RV or whatever the case may be, pay a little down payment on that, and literally just like be able to like live and prosper on my own land.
Yeah.
And the government literally gets in the way of that, where you can't even buy like a little plot of land and put an RV on that, because you need a permit. You need it's just like
you need a house with plumbing.
Well, again,
right. You need
a county where we live. There are actually certain townships that don't even let you do that at all.
Yes.
They
literally say, no, it's an eyesore. You're not allowed to do that on your own property. Even if you own the property beforehand, it doesn't matter. You can't put a freaking camper up on it. It can't.
It's insane.
That's ridiculous. It's your property.
And like this could drive down home prices in an insane amount. Being able to put up tiny homes and like doing all this kind of effort to like bring down the cost of rent and like allow these low income families to even like, because I guarantee you a low income family would rather prefer a small home than not being able to afford one at all. Like it's just having to live in an apartment.
Yes.
Having a tiny home is better than an apartment.
Big issue in Door County with so many of these apartment housing complexes that are popping up, yet all these families are looking for 3-4 bedroom homes. They need homes. And then you got all these homes that are sitting for sale on the market. Nobody's buying them. They've been sitting there for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't the city take that money if they wanted to create a housing program?
Right.
And instead of building another complex, they buy these houses, have people flip them over and sign them up, and it could work for their house. It'd be kind of like
Habitat for Humanity.
Yes, Habitat for Humanity, a different kind of way, or a program extension off of that or something,
it's just a different way to explore the idea than just letting them sit empty in tons of families. Honestly, what I see happening in Door County is if the local government here doesn't figure some things out, and then over the next 10 plus years, you're going to see a mass exodus. There's going to be tons of families leaving this county because there's nowhere to work and there's nowhere to live.
Right.
You know, you're gonna have a bunch of immigrants coming in, living in these small apartments that are cropping up, and they're gonna be running the jobs
that
up
are
here.
$1,000 a month.
Oh my God, yeah. For literally a 2-bedroom apartment in some places here in Door County, it's $1,200-$1,300 a month.
Right.
Which is
That's
insane.
insane. That's insane.
Insane for a 2-bedroom apartment. My parents literally paid $1,300 for a 2-bedroom apartment in Sister Bay, Door County.
That's absurd.
We pay $1,100 for the house we live in right now. It's a 5-bedroom house, and it's like it has a fenced-in yard. It's downtown Sturgeon Bay. Like, to us, that's crazy. Yeah. But you know, like when I see my parents paying $1,300 for a 2-bedroom apartment, I'm like, God, we're blessed. Hashtag. Oh, man. But you know, I mean, there are lots of places where I mean, there are a lot of people that I mean, I don't know what it is like in your area, but I mean, I'm
about
sure
the same.
probably,
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of live over in the more like, do you live close to La Crosse? I guess I don't know exactly.
So I live just north of it in Holman.
Okay.
And it's kind of like I would say like kind of nicer area. La Crosse, there's a lot of older buildings and stuff like that. And then I think you can get a nice apartment for like $700-$800 in La Crosse, but not in Holman. Right.
I actually grew up in Iowa in a town called Decorah. I don't know if you're familiar with Decorah.
Yeah, that's kind of like central north.
Northeast. Yeah. Actually, it's about 45 minutes from La Crosse. So actually, my entire life, I grew up, we used to go to La Crosse shopping. Like that was where we'd go to the little mall up there and everything like that. So it was kind of fun, when I found out you were from that area and everything. I was like, hey, kind of my old stomping grounds.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So it's cool. I mean, it's really cool that, talking to you and fleshing out a lot of these ideas. I think, honestly, it's a good thing that you switched over to Congress for your aim. I think the passion that you feel, it really fits that level a lot more.
Definitely,
I kind of felt that before when you'd even approached me, and asked my opinion. But even talking to you more, it seems like, you really... You need to be there fighting the big dogs, Right, I like that. I've actually been telling her, I've been loving the posts you've been putting out. It's actually what inspired me to put out the Mike Gallagher post, because you put out that Ron Kine post, and I was like, gloves are off. Yeah, here we go.
Let's go.
Let's do this. Let's take them down.
I mean, and that's the thing, is just like raising awareness to the cronyism.
Yes.
To these guys, and like I got blocked by Derek Van Orden, but I created like a sub account so I can like still look at it. But
good. Yeah. Still know what the enemy's doing.
Exactly.
But that's a badge of pride to be blocked by your enemy, though. I'd say that. So.
You should just have your picture as like the Big Brother's watching you poster from 1984 as your profile picture
of your
fake account.
Yeah, right.
Always watching you. But yeah, I mean, and it's just like this guy, he's like, so he made like the reason why I got blocked as well. I should like kind of point this out, because like he said like we should be blocking gay people from coming into our country. Mind you, to even get into this country, you have to go through a background check, and like you can't have any felonies and you can't have multiple misdemeanors. But he wanted to add on the fact that he would go through these background checks for HHS and you couldn't be part of a gang at all. And I'm like if these people are gang members, like they're coming to America to have a better life. So the Farmland Act and for immigrants, it was mostly for the fact of just like people that have been here like 5 years and like they've been working on farms. Like these, like if they were probably gang members, like they're not a threat to society.
Yeah, they're working on a farm.
Exactly.
In like Wisconsin.
Exactly. And so like I comment on it. Like I always like comment on the propaganda that he posts, and like he just came out and he's like, if you support bringing in all this crime and all this different stuff to America, then I can't let you share your post on here onto my page. And I'm like, so you're gonna cancel me, like
censor you? I thought you were against censorship.
Exactly, man. Like, and it's just like this guy is he's a fascist. Like in all actuality, like that's what he is. He stands for like the whole Trump cult gang, and it's just you see through the lies.
Brown shirt.
Exactly. And it's just I'm ready to take him down for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, it's important, like you said, that these people get called out and held accountable on their actual policies and the things that they personally have put their signatures on.
Right.
Like This is all public data. It only took me about a half hour to flush out everything I did about Mike Gallagher, and that's enough for me to never vote for him.
Right.
And it took me 30 minutes,
Right.
It's all right there. It's not like it's hidden.
Right.
I'm not going out of my way to prove the guy is bad. He did it to himself.
Exactly. I mean, and that's also like kind of like the hard part with like people who haven't been in office before, because like Derek Van Orden, he likes to talk a lot, so it's kind of easier to target him. Mm-hmm. But like when you look at like his foreign policy, you can really only judge it off of like what he's talked about with Trump and like the peace deals. Like I can go off of that and be like, look, this is an arms deal. Like you're wrong. Yeah. False. Like he claims to be like anti-war, but like if you claim to be pro-Israel, like you're pro-apartheid. Like you can look at all these examples of like minuscule things that they say and put it all together and be like, this is what you would represent, and you're a fascist. Like at the end of the day, that's what you are.
Yeah, and you're still a neocon, even though you try to brand yourself as something different.
Exactly. And like he, like speaking against these immigrant, like he claimed, like I can't comment on it. I was like, hey, maybe you should try being part of like a reform the Republican Party and make it pro-immigration. He's like, we are the pro-immigration party. I'm like, okay. Like you literally calling these people gang members, rapists, and murderers. Like you are not pro-immigration. No. You're pro like white European immigration that we saw in the 1920s. Yes. Like get out of here.
Yes, exactly. And that's so frustrating because honestly, they brought in just as much crime as any other immigration, because in any group of people, you're going to have bad eggs. That's what happens. But that's what supposedly our legal system is supposed to be for, right?
Exactly.
Like if we'd stop criminalizing all these, otherwise non-violent offenders, then maybe our police would have time to go after the really violent, aggressive people out there.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have to worry about whether they're coming over our border or not.
Right.
Stop making so much sense.
Yeah, right. Stop making so much sense. I'll be put on a list.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
I don't want to keep you too late tonight. I know we got a little bit of a late start here, but I would honestly, like with Jake, I want to make you a common facet here on the show, to be honest, at least monthly.
That'd be perfect. That'd be awesome.
Available for it, because I think it's extremely important to get out to all of Wisconsin, not even just your district, but all of Wisconsin. Right. What you're doing, what you stand for, and we can bring in the day's topics and say, Brett, how do you feel about these things? What would you vote for? Because people need to start understanding what libertarians would actually do in office. Right. Absolutely. If we got a Brett Knudson in District 3, what would that look like? And then we can start really showing people. Right. And your election's in 2022, right?
That's right. So we got plenty of time.
Plenty of time to flush this out. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we'll definitely be staying in touch. If there's anything that I can do to help support your campaign, let me know. I try my best to do everything I can to share and all that stuff. But I also like making up graphics and stuff. But you're also seemingly pretty good at that too. So
yeah, I try what I can.
Yeah, it looks like you got it pretty covered. But I would definitely love to help support you any way I can. So definitely let me know.
Definitely. Awesome. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.